Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined by my currently for sale co-host Tucker Hazel. We're here today to talk about yet another acquisition, but this time it's not coming from Microsoft, it's coming from Sony. But before we talk about their purchase of Bungie, if you want to talk to us about this acquisition or anything else at all, be sure to join our Discord link as usual, top of the description right down there. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. If not, maybe Jim Ryan will come to your house and try to buy your dog. But Tucker,
and he has a lot of money, so you probably can't say no.
No. But it's probably breaking and entering, so you probably have a good case against him.
Sure, that's a great point.
Tucker, we learned today that PlayStation is buying Bungie for a sum total of, shout out as usual to Nibel for being my main source of news,
3.6
for 3.6 billion. So about 64 billion less than the Activision deal.
Yes.
Funnily enough, Bungie used to be under Activision, but they
weaseled
their way out of there.
Under Microsoft, even before that. So they're really getting around. They're the town bicycle.
Tucker, what do you think about this news?
I frankly don't, and I will get into more of the details, mainly being the crux of why I'm about to say this. This isn't that crazy, frankly. Again, Bungie, they're the town bicycle. They're always swapping around. People are gobbling them up and spitting them back out, and they're like, no, fuck you, I want to leave. And also, doesn't seem like they're being impacted that heavily by being under the PlayStation Studios umbrella. So cool, great. Frankly, not that huge of a deal.
Yeah, I think this is a very peculiar story, and I want to read out a couple more details.
Surprising
here from Nibel,
but I don't think actually as big of a deal as we've been getting recently, obviously.
Yeah, so I want to read out a couple notes here. This is from an interview with Jim Ryan and Bungie CEO Pete Parsons. Future Bungie releases to remain multi-platform as well. It's been confirmed that Destiny 2 is going to remain multi-platform. PlayStation is interested in Bungie's live service expertise. Jim Ryan wants to, quote, go beyond consoles. It wants to have an aggressive roadmap with live services in the future. Pete Parsons says PlayStation acquisition helps to accelerate their own plans. Bungie IP could be pushed into TV and film. He also praises the long and overall positive relationship that they've had with Sony. Of course, they've worked in an exclusive capacity for DLC for Destiny. Ryan also confirms the Bungie acquisition has been in the works for months, so this is more a response, if you want to call it to that, to Bethesda opposed to Activision.
Yeah.
And there's also a little note that Jim Ryan says that we should expect more acquisitions in the future.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this is kind of weird. I think this is kind of weird behavior at Sony.
That's sort of a je ne sais quoi. Many people have been saying this online.
I think it has a je ne sais pas quoi. I haven't taken French in a while. There is no...
Trust
I'll
me.
take the L.
Trust me.
Here's the point.
Something different in French.
I think the only thing that's neat about this is kind of like the studio that built Microsoft is now owned by Sony, right?
Sure.
But ultimately, who really gives a shit? Nobody. It doesn't really matter, frankly. I just don't really understand why you spend $4 billion on this if you're not going to make the game exclusive, and if you're not really going to materially gain a whole hell of a lot of this. Sure, you're going to get Bungie as a studio to maybe work on a Killzone or Resistance or something, but I don't even think that's likely because it's going to be all hands on deck for Destiny, especially because we know that Destiny has a long roadmap ahead of it with other Bungie IP in the work there too. So it seems like, if anything, Sony's just trying to get a piece of the pie, opposed to do anything particularly radical here.
Yeah, so it's interesting when I think about the impact of the situation here and seeing who succeeds more out of this relationship, what's really going to be benefited in terms of on both sides of the coin, Sony and Bungie. When we think back to Bethesda, that was an acquisition that obviously that's really for Microsoft. That's to give them a stable of IP, a ton of studios, a big hold on the industry that they had been reaching for the entirety of the Xbox One generation, and now finally have with that and Activision Blizzard. And Activision Blizzard, a sort of benefit on both sides of, okay, now Microsoft has access to fucking Call of Duty and all of Blizzard's IP, but also Activision is being able to be given a big overhaul from the top under Phil Spencer and Microsoft's reign of pleasure, not terror. But in this situation, I actually see the benefit mostly going towards Sony's end, and not so much, very little impact except for monetarily on Bungie. Bungie is a
Yeah.
studio that has worked for the most part independently for the last few generations. They've received funding from different places, but they are, solid on their own. They do their destiny. They've got their whole plan in the works. They're doing their own IPs. They are, as Herman Hulst and Jim Ryan have said, are able to publish their own games wherever they want. Not a lot of oversight on that.
Yeah.
But what Sony gets from this, and I think what this is really, maybe I'm reading into this, but what I gather is that they are getting interesting expertise in a place that their stable of studios does not open up to. They don't have live service games. For the most part, they don't have multiplayer games. Sony's IP are very specifically in a certain way, a certain style of game, especially for the last few generations. And this gives them access to knowledge and sharing resources and taking members from different teams and advice that will allow them to expand in different ways and obviously get access to publishing things in other places. The idea that this is a different kind of future for what publishing means as one of the biggest companies in the industry as Sony. They have their hands on games that are on Xbox now, and as of today as well on Nintendo, because MLB The Show is coming to
MLB
Switch. But it's a different kind of future that isn't okay. This is going to be specifically exclusive, but they are getting a new kind of experience, new kind of expertise, and they're getting their hands more across the industry, which is obviously the direction that most companies are trending right now.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things you said there that I like. I think it's definitely, if it's not a response to a Microsoft acquisition, I think it's a response to a Microsoft strategy of we want to make money beyond our walls. And of course, we saw that with those ports to PC of things like Horizon in particular, which did very well, like 170% return on investment or something there. Sony announced apparently God of War is doing even better. So obviously they were dipping their toes into that water, but I think now, as you're saying, let's see if we can establish some streams of revenue elsewhere, which is certainly a useful thing to do in the face of a competitor who is both taking stuff from you and giving you things like a Cuphead or whatever, and then taking that revenue back, right? Publishing Minecraft on your platform and everything, right? So I get why they want to set up that lifeline, and I don't think you need to buy Bungie to learn about live service games. I think you could probably poach a couple heads of strategy or development from studios, or open your fucking eyes and do that, right? But I think you're right about that. Yeah. I think the thing you're wrong about, though, is that Bungie is not necessarily equipped to be its own publisher. It's important to remember that when they left Microsoft to do Destiny, that was under Activision.
Yes, true.
For a 10-year plan, which ended up being a huge fucking mess. But Bungie under Bungie is better in some ways, and in other ways there's still discontent widely within the Destiny community. And whether or not a publisher above them, whether for financial reasons or just kind of putting some girders on them, is going to be useful, I suppose we'll see. Ultimately, Destiny's kind of kicking along anyway, so I don't necessarily know if people being frustrated about like rolling content really matters, but ultimately having that publisher above them might actually be more useful than we're letting on. So we'll see. But ultimately, if they're only making Destiny, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for the most part to know what's Bungie running their own ship in terms of like content decisions, or Sony coming in to say, you should do this differently. But that doesn't even seem likely, because Sony has no fucking expertise in this field whatsoever, unlike someone like Activision did in a parallel sense with Call of Duty or whatever. They know how to annualize and have a content roadmap, and Sony doesn't really. So there might be a benefit, there might not be. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about all of this and where the different strengths lie in Sony having the money and variety and access, and then and Bungie being specifically into roadmaps and content and online multiplayer and that kind of stuff, which is something that Sony can't go through. I don't see there being a situation where they take bad information from either side. The fact that Sony is not equipped to publish content roadmaps and live service games. Bungie, we'll see if it crashes and burns, but I kind of doubt it, because they have Sony to support them monetarily. I'm sure they'll be able to figure it out. And frankly, from our side as consumers, as burgeoning industry analysts as we are, we're probably not going to see almost any impact on the way that Destiny is releasing. The only thing that is to look forward to into the future is, how does this impact future Bungie IPs? How does this impact their studios being involved with other PlayStation studios in support capacities, in PlayStation maybe taking a bigger step into creating multiplayer games, service games that Bungie can assist with? That's something we won't see for half a decade, but that's where I think the real meat of this deal lies, is in way down the line stuff, and basically nothing materially for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and I mean, even to an extent, it might still be immaterial if the games come multi-platform and Sony doesn't know how to make the type of game Bungie makes. Because the thing is, I really read this mostly as they're just latching on to a new source of revenue from someplace. And 100%. And if we're gonna lose Call of Duty, we know that that Microsoft has to honor commitments to an extent, right? Yeah. But if they're gonna take a cut of that, where are we gonna make that cut somewhere else? I suppose we'll tie ourselves to Destiny. Whether or not that's smart in 2022, I don't know. But I'm not fucking Jimthony Ryan. My bigger thing is that, like, I think now the acquisitions are starting to get bad. Sure. Like, it's not fun anymore. And I think in hindsight, the Activision thing, I don't necessarily think was that fun either. And
sure, it was fun to talk about.
Yeah, but I feel like we might have been speaking out of the too positive of a tenor, perhaps. I think that if Microsoft, if they actually move in the direction they're going to move with xCloud and everything that comes to fruition, I think there's a lot more of a positive effect to Microsoft buying somebody, as we tried to talk about, and I still latch onto that. But I think that the general principle of buying these things, I think, is becoming slipperier and slipperier to justify. Sure. Especially if it's like Sony, where I don't think that there's any material short-term or long-term gain for the player here when they do this. I think there is for Microsoft, even if that there's certainly a nefarious sort of, as Colin Moriarty called it, a malign intent there of making other people have to follow suit, right?
Yeah, sure.
Even though this wasn't a response to this, perhaps it's a response to Bethesda, but it's certainly a response to the fact that the industry is moving towards consolidating, and we need to buy things too, right? And I feel like we have no benefit to this. It doesn't matter if you own a PlayStation, it doesn't matter if you own an Xbox. There is no benefit to this other than the fact that now we're building that pyramid of Sony's at the top, and now we're starting to slot things underneath it that perhaps are not going to funnel out into anything useful. Activision, not only do you get games on Game Pass, not only is there going to be more access through xCloud, but IP is going to be revived. We're going to get better leadership in that company. There is reason to be excited there.
Yes.
There is nothing useful about this acquisition from the player's perspective, literally whatsoever. And I think it's getting a little bit tiresome.
That's certainly true. This is, as we started, and how I was like, it happened. Yeah. I'm not losing my mind. You're not losing your mind either. We're both very big PlayStation fans. You're a big Destiny fan. You're a big original Halo fan. You like both these groups a lot, but hearing what this deal means from the words of Jim Ryan and Herman Hulst of, no, we're going to let them do their thing. We're going to help them along. We're very happy to have them under our wing, but what does it really mean? Obviously unclear. The idea, though, that whoa, someone's bellowing in the background.
We got commotion in the hallways. People talking about Bungie, I guess. I don't know.
Probably. What else would they be talking about? They got to be on Twitter where everyone's just talking about this. I lost my train of thought. Oh, is that there could be this material impact in the future. That's a very far down the road thing, as I was saying earlier, but Bungie's next IP could be console exclusive. That's a big could, but that is in development. It's not for a few years from now, but or even a new IP that's not the big one that they're working on right now. There is a connection that could become more obvious in the future, but that's very far down the road.
Yeah, I mean, they do say that future Bungie releases will remain multi-platform. Whether that's true or not, we'll see when they actually
I think,
are ready to be announced.
Maybe I'm misremembering this, but I thought the wording was they have the ability to remain multi-platform.
Perhaps that Father Nibel is not being specific enough in his language, but at least reading it here, it does appear as though They will be. We can let somebody in the audience correct us on that, although
Sure.
they won't. So fuck it. Who really cares? We don't. There's not enough comments. We have basically no accountability in the things we say on this program. We could just make shit up and people wouldn't call us out on it. So, but no, I think the bigger takeaway from what you're saying that I'm interested in too is the big picture, but the really big picture of all of these deals, right? Because ultimately, it's clearer in the short term to look at a Tencent acquisition as probably being bad because of where Tencent money comes from.
Yeah.
It's kind of easy to look at a Microsoft acquisition and say this is a good acquisition for the player because of X, Y, Z benefits we get.
Yeah.
But then there's acquisitions like these that just kind of exist. And that makes me more nervous than the other ones because I feel like they might trend towards a more like innocuous but not particularly healthy and ecosystem like we see all the time. And basically every other like marketplace ever where there's like 5 companies that own everything, right?
Yeah.
And whether or not that matters, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll see.
That's the thing. As someone who is, I don't know anything about economics. Everything that I'm talking about here
supply and demand.
I've heard of that one
like this.
I've heard of that one before. But the idea that I'm not familiar with any of this, and I can only speak to my hypotheses on I'm familiar to an extent with both of these companies, and it would make sense for them to trend in a certain direction. But as someone who's I don't know what consolidation really means for large scale or for our scale, whatever. This is obviously something that's been happening in many other industries over the course of the last 250 years of human existence. But I can't say I'm personally particularly worried, as I have on a personal level not felt any real impact from consolidation of Disney products. I know like that kind of thing. It is something that other people can talk a lot more authoritatively about, but I could be worried in 3 years. But as of right now, I don't personally feel any reason to be until we end up getting material consequences for this.
Yeah, I think this only invites conversation about the potential negatives because there is no player side positive. I think, like if they said, "Hey, we're acquiring Bungie, we're gonna let them do their thing. You're still gonna have your Destiny multi-platform, but they're going to use their live service expertise to help us co-develop and produce a new Killzone live service title, right?"
Sure.
Something for the player to latch onto. I don't think there's anything for the player to latch onto, which then just begins the cycle of dubious commercial like strategies to which end, who knows? But usually not to our benefit. Either it's going to be probably a neutral force or a negative one. So I think that I've had enough acquisitions for the year. I think we can be done now.
Yeah, I'll call Phil Spencer and Jim Ryan and be like, guys, I know it's been really fun. First month of the year, get it out, have a little hoopla, but reel it back, calm down.
A big January.
Yeah,
you could say a big fucking January. But at least, again, in the case of Microsoft, we benefit materially. Not only in terms of free games on Game Pass, but in terms of, hey, we're gonna get this IP back. We're gonna reclaim these studios. There's gonna be good stuff. Here it's just like company that I know buying a stake in another company I know, money changing hands.
It's all just fucking money at the end of the day.
It's just money. Fuck it.
And you know what? Give us your money. I don't know how. We don't have Patreon. If you're watching this video and you've got $2, mail them to me.
Fuck it. Pick a random address in Nebraska and mail it. Put Tucker's name on it. See what happens.
Goodwill towards man.
Yes. Before you say anything, I bought a new shirt. Don't all make a fuss about it at once.
No, I was just doing my daily extra brow eye sizes. Gotta make sure my X brows are eye sized.